Welcome and thank you guys so much for stopping by Galadon Gaming. Yes, we're talking about an 18-0 start to the season, and this is the deck that did it. We're going to start out by looking at my log here, my battles. There were a couple from the previous season. I took a few days break after the reset and then went to work with my Hog Cycle Princess Fireball deck. And as you can see, had a lot of luck with it, had a lot of victories. In fact, 18 victories in 19 battles and not a single loss. And we will get into some of these replays and show exactly how it happened. You can see I did defeat all sorts of different kinds of decks, a lot of golems, a lot of double P.E.K.K.A. Prince, and even occasional mortar deck. And now obviously this was at season reset, so most of the beginning battles were against lower level players. Towards the end, they were higher level players, and those are the replays we're looking at. And with this Hog Cycle deck, there's really two ways I prefer to start out. Either with the Hog Goblin Zap or with the Elixir Collector. And when I don't have that combination up, then it does make things a little bit more difficult. Here, the princess goes down early, wakes up my king right away, which I cannot complain about. Like to have that additional defense there. And the dragon moving in, so I went ahead and I cycled over to the Elixir Collector by dropping the princess right away. And he's got a wizard. Now, I do not like the wizard card. That can be a tough card to counter, except when you can annihilate it with a fireball. And now my opponent goes ahead and drops his own Elixir Collector. Definitely looking for some balancing in these Elixir Collectors. We're seeing far too many of them right now, in my opinion, in battles. It would be nice to see more diversity of decks rather than just P.E.K.K.A. Double Prince and Hog Cycle decks. So he drops the freeze spell on my Hog, and that's going to prevent me from getting much damage done at all. The princess also pretty ineffective. That was definitely a waste there. She did almost nothing against the Valkyrie. She gets wiped out, and the Valkyrie is going to move forward towards the tower, and it looks like she will only get maybe one shot off before she goes down. So I've got an Elixir Collector working, so does my opponent, so I prefer to have the advantage here, and I drop another one back left as the P.E.K.K.A. goes down in the back of my opponent's playing field. I figure I'm going to have enough time to counter that P.E.K.K.A. as it moves forward. But my opponent is going to throw a little surprise on me here. The balloon, not what I expected. I cycle through the Hog Rider too late. Usually I try to deploy the Hog Rider to force my opponent to do something other than to back up the P.E.K.K.A. Didn't really work out there. The balloon does get through, gets a little more damage off on that tower. Looks like the P.E.K.K.A. is going to wipe out my cannon, and unfortunately going to get to the tower. Big push right here. Man, things just went bad fast. That really didn't look good for me, and right here, it just looks like I am so far behind. Very little damage done to that right tower, and he's got my king quickly down to just about half health. But much like the Golem decks, I feel like this deck, should the cycle work out just right, has an opportunity to take down a tower in just one quick push, and we're going to see it right here as the Hog and the minions get through, and that tower is history. The freeze spell comes way too late, and I've quickly evened up the match by getting those minions, yes, my favorite card, into that right lane tower. So let's go ahead and keep the Elixir advantage on my side. I drop the Fireball, damaging all three of those structures over there, and I continue to pump Elixir on my side as we're down to the last 20 seconds. And right here, I drop the Hog Rider more just to get it out of the way than anything else. Those other cards I want available as the units approach. The minions I do have to drop early, and unfortunately that wizard is going to wipe them out, but the Fireball takes out the wizard, and again we're facing the balloon. This is the same way my right tower went down, but only this time I am going to be able to stop them. Here comes the balloon once again, but the minions go down. Between the minions and the princess, we are going to get that balloon out of the way before it takes the tower down, but it still does not look good. I don't know how I could possibly come back from this. How could it happen? Maybe with a fireball and a hog. There is some damage, not quite getting it to under 1,000 hit points. Another balloon, so we've got to throw something out to stop that balloon from going straight to the tower. And this time, the minions will get in there and get most of the job done on that balloon. The balloon doesn't touch the tower. My opponent drops a dragon, and that gives me a big chance while he's low on elixir to get that hog and the goblins in. They reach the tower, and that is game over so quickly through 1,000 hit points when a hog and goblins can get to a tower untouched. So a bit of a shout out right here to Jason from the Helsinki tournament. Not so much his deck, but the idea. If you listened to the interview of him, he said he had played over 2,000 battles with that exact same deck, and I feel like that's kind of what is working for me here. I have played so many battles now with this exact deck that I'm starting to get very comfortable with it. I know exactly what to counter and when. And now, of course, I've also warned players against becoming too comfortable with any one deck because of balance changes and updates. So I realize, obviously, that is going to change. But for now, we're going to get the most mileage possible out of this Hog Cycle deck. And yes, that is the Mortar Rocket deck we're facing at level 11. It's a little unusual. It's rare that I see level 11 or level 12 players using the Mortar. It's almost always the level 8, 9, 10 guys that are using it. But here is a level 11. We've got to go ahead and damage that Elixir Collector. We know now that the Mortar is out. I really shift to a more defensive stance in these battles when I'm facing a Mortar. And I'm just waiting for an opportunity to overtake him, and I'm happy with a draw. If I have to draw a Mortar player, I will, rather than pushing hard and trying to gain the early advantage. So right here, the Zap spell makes all the difference. I melt right through his minions, right through his Mortar as well. Unfortunately, his arrows take my own minions out, but at least we've countered our second Mortar, and really that's what this is all about. Just trying to get through those Mortars, prevent him from cycling to the Mortar and getting it down when I don't have a good counter for it. I do try to save the cannon as a frontline counter to the Mortar and the other cards. Well, this deck does provide a lot of opportunities to take that Mortar out, either with the Minion Horde, with the Fireball, or with the Hog Rider. Now you'll notice my last deployment of the Hog Rider was the Hog by itself, and that is really indicative of me switching to a more defensive style here. I'm not going to throw a bunch of cards in with that Hog. Just let the Hog go by itself. I'm going to save all of these other cards to counter, there it is, that stinking Mortar. So, alright, hey, it's in the game, and like I've said, it's fair. If it's in the game, it's fair to use. It's frustrating to play, but nonetheless, it's fair, and I have to admit, some players are pretty good at putting that Mortar down. Other players, they're a little bit easier to counter. Here, I'm able to pretty much take that Mortar out quickly every single time it goes down, and now my cannon, my Elixir Collector placement, they are all in anticipation of that Mortar. You'll notice the Mortar is going to target after the cannon goes down. It targets the Princess for a shot, so she is going to get taken out. Fireballs take out the Barbarians, and then the next round is going to go after the Elixir Collector. Much rather have it go on the Elixir Collector than on the tower. We're going to go ahead and get those minions out of the way, and once again another Mortar has failed to get through, and we're actually ahead with just the Hog Rider pushing on the right hand side here and there. We've gotten a lot of hit points off that tower, and it looks good as long as we can prevent him from building up too much of an Elixir advantage and from getting too many shots off with that Mortar. Here once again the Hog Rider gets through all the way to the tower, and that is bad news. The Hog Rider is not going to be countered in time, and we've just about finished it off. A Fireball does the rest of the job for us, and 15 seconds into overtime, the game is over. And my only hope is that we can talk these guys out of using the Mortar by beating them repeatedly. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the one battle that did not go my way in the beginning of this season, and it was against a lower level, a level 10 player, bringing the P.E.K.K.A. and 2 legendary cards to the battle. So the one card combination that seems to be giving me the most troubles is Balloon Freeze. For some reason, that is probably more the weakness of my play than it is the deck, because I've got plenty of cards that can counter it. Now, I wish I had, say, a Musketeer, maybe some more minions. Really, the ideal card here is the Minion Horde. Besides that, I don't have anything. Obviously, the cannon is going to be worthless against it. And my Minion Horde, if they're used up, say, against another unit like the P.E.K.K.A., that leaves me very vulnerable to the attack of a Balloon Freeze. So right here, the minions get through that P.E.K.K.A. Luckily, before the Princess gets through, he hasn't brought arrows, so at least I have that working for me. So the Princess moves forward. I've got to counter her. Probably a terrible, no question, a terrible place to drop my Princess. Should have dropped her to the left, kind of in the center. That way she would have taken out the opposing Princess. Instead, I have to use the Goblins, but it turns out they do a great job of getting to the tower themselves before the P.E.K.K.A. takes them down, and that was several hundred hit points on my side. So the P.E.K.K.A. moving in, and we still haven't seen the Balloon Freeze, and you can see the opponent thinking about it. He doesn't want to do it yet. He's saving it, and here it comes. Here comes the balloon in behind the P.E.K.K.A., and the balloon is going straight for the tower. There's the freeze spell, and I am in big trouble. The minions were sent in after the P.E.K.K.A. Luckily, the P.E.K.K.A. goes down, and right here, we get the balloon down, but of course, the tower is history. So balloon freeze Don't ask me about that Hog Rider deployment. Maybe that was just a little rage deployment there. Kind of a strange choice all by itself. It turns out, again, to work out well for me, and we actually almost get the opponent's tower down. So it's close. With a minute left, it's not over. We have a shot at coming back, but obviously we have the level advantage. So with the card advantage, we should be able to at least tie this up in the next 50 seconds. So my opponent has wisely switched back to defense. He's just going to focus on defending this tower. Now, of course, 2 fireball spells will take out that tower completely, so it's just a matter for me right now of trying to hold off any sort of push and at least get enough damage in. There is 1 fireball, and it also takes down the princess. 30 seconds remain. We've got to stop that very dangerous P.E.K.K.A. So obviously there's 2 big things going on. I can't just go all out after that tower and not worry about, yes, the balloon and the P.E.K.K.A. once again. That ice wizard making things more difficult. We will get the balloon out of the way. The P.E.K.K.A. gets distracted. It wanders off. The wizard goes down. 10 seconds remain. Here comes the Hog Rider. Not going to get there. The freeze spell stops the Hog Rider. Time is counting down, and watch this. Thumbs up from the opponent as he thinks he's won, but no! The fireball lands at the last possible fraction of a second and ties this battle up. Just when it looked like it was over, I save myself from the certain loss, and we go into overtime. Now I'm going to go ahead and play the rest of this battle at double speed because, well, it ends up in a tie. Now really right here, I've just focused on defense the rest of the battle. I realize that I'm not having a great time stopping the P.E.K.K.A. balloon freeze. So rather than trying anything tricky, I just sit back on defense, try to build all sorts of structures around my tower, and as time runs out, he almost gets me down. Just 1 more hit from the P.E.K.K.A. and he would have had the victory. Instead, it's the draw, and we start off the season 18-0-1. So definitely a good start, getting up there, getting close to 4,000 trophies already. Thank you guys, as always, for sticking around all the way to the end of this episode. Let's hope the Hog Cycle deck continues to work, but I smell a nerf. In the meantime, check out my other videos, subscribe for daily Clash content, and I hope to see every last one of you back here again tomorrow for more full attacks.
Galadon, it had to be 18, right? Couldn't be 17. I see how it is.